Okay, we're back now, and I want to introduce you to a very fine gentleman. He's got information that I didn't even know existed in the world about cannabis. So I'm going to probably sit back and listen to him for a lot of the time. Um, Barry Herzberg is going to come on in just a minute. And Barry, I'd like you to, talk to our audience about who Barry is and what your education and background is and what makes you special. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry.
Thank you, Dr. Leroy. I appreciate that. Some very nice words. Well, I grew up. First of all, I'm turning 65 years old in a couple of days, I think, or no, a couple of weeks. I don't
forget.
I don't. Yeah, my mind is gone between the cannabis and age.
Couple of things that happens when you turn that age.
Yeah.
And one is memory, and I can't remember the other.
Right. I know that every time I pass any kind of reflective surface, I see some old bald guy. I don't know who that is exactly, but anyhow, so I'm originally from New Jersey. I went to school in New Jersey. I moved out to California, to Los Angeles in late 1979, and I did a few things here and there. I was really an art student, and I was hoping to go to art college, Pasadena, and things didn't work out. I ended up in the telecommunications industry, which ended up being pretty lucrative, and it was a moderately decent industry.
In what phase of telecommunications?
So I sold large systems to enterprise business. So some of my customers were literally Verizon and Greyhound and large companies. Mm-hmm. So that was fine. One day I was driving with my wife through Hillcrest, and she said, "Look at that! Look at that sign." It was actually it was spray painted onto a telephone pole, and it said something like "Find your bud" through weedmaps.com. And I said, "Oh my God, they're advertising, weed maps. What we got to check that out when I get home." Because I admit, I guess I left out the fact that I got arrested for possession with intent to distribute when I was in college.
That's a little thing.
It was a small thing that I did kind of forget. And talk about privilege. I was treated in an unbelievable way that I wasn't expecting. We got to court, and my lawyer said to me, "We'll be done in a couple minutes." And he went up to the judge, and they talked for a minute, and he came back and said, "Let's go." And he got my record expunged.
Wow.
They said, "Oh, good grades in school, what have you."
Wow.
But in southern New Jersey, I know what it was now. And so that happened. In the meantime, let's go back, and I got home from this trip where I saw the Weed Maps sign, and I went online. And I called my wife in and I said, "This is spectacular. This is Google Maps and Yelp mixed together for cannabis. It's a great idea. Look at there's all the dispensaries, where they're located, and there's reviews
To show you how to get there.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you can decide where you are, and you say, "Oh, here's the closest one," and then you could go on, and it would give you a menu with pricing and all these reviews, and I mean, a lot of reviews.
Now, this was when? What year about?
This was 2009.
Okay.
So I said, "This is too much. I got to get my." I didn't have a recommendation, a doctor's recommendation. I didn't really know if that was real back then. And so I talked to a friend of mine who told me it's absolutely real. Gave me a card. I went to a doctor. I got my my medical card, and I immediately went to a dispensary. And what's funny is I've almost, I'd say, weekly contact with the person that owned that dispensary to this day. So it's sort of interesting to say. First time I ever saw a dispensary was your dispensary. So I decided to go and do a review because they had reviews too. So I found a dispensary near my house. I went in, I bought some stuff. I went back on and signed into Weed Maps and did a review, and it was kind of fun. And I did another one, and at some point I noticed that there was a listing of top 10 reviewers for all of Weed Maps. They were all local. They were all like almost, I think 9 out of 10 of them were in San Diego.
Okay.
And so it was pretty easy to hit people up. They had a forum back then. So you could just kind of like Facebook, you could just, so I shot a message to all the top ones and said, hey, why don't we all meet at a dispensary together? And we'll all buy something, and then we'll all go to one of our houses and have a sesh. And then we'll all write a review and talk about how we all went together. So we did. We went to the farm on Claremont. It's called a place called The Farm. We each did a review,
Right.
and I get hit up by Weed Maps. What are you doing? I said, what's the matter? They said, it's like you caused all this, like everybody's talking about it. What did you do? And I said, I just contacted they said, we love it. Can you do, how can you do this some more? So Weed Maps eventually hired me. They asked me to be the, what do they call it? Invitational strain reviewer.
Wow.
And so they sent me around to dispensaries in San Diego where they gave me free product.
Wow.
And then I would write a review, and then they would tag my review at the top so that no matter how many more reviews came, I went the first one. So that was sort of fun.
So this was, what, 6 years before in California, before it was recreationally.
Oh, yes. This was way before recreational.
Yeah, way before that.
Yeah, this was all medical.
This is all medical. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Everybody had to have a card to get in. And that kind of. So that was fun to do. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to meet a lot of dispensary owners.
Yeah.
And a lot of bud tenders. And started to realize, this is fun. These are nice people. This is a great industry.
Right.
And then I remember, I guess that was late 2008. Because Obama had not yet won. And when he won, everyone was just hysterically happy.
Sure.
And everyone said, okay, well, now let's get into the industry. We have someone that we can trust in the White House. And so, a few things happened here and there with me and one of the dispensary owners. That was in North Park at the time.
Okay.
He had gotten closed down. And he contacted me and said, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, just look for another spot. And he said, yeah, you can't, it's hard to find, and I don't know, I'm not sure, what's going to happen. And at the time he was doing some extracting with what's called a closed loop system, which was kind of unusual. People were doing what's called open blasting back then, which was kind of crazy. It was using very dangerous butane in PVC that you bought at, Home Depot and
To extract from
to extract.
Yeah.
And they were using So
Right.
so butane hash oil was called BHO. Still is.
Yeah.
They were doing it what's called open blasting, and you may have heard back then there were a lot of explosions, fires,
Yeah.
people got hurt. How we managed to be lucky enough to not ever get involved in that, I don't know, because that would have been the normal thing for us to try and do.
Yeah.
But we spent a little money and bought a thing called a Timisium from a guy in Texas.
And a Timisium is?
A Timisium is a closed loop extractor.
Okay.
So it's a way to use butane to extract the THC and the terpenes from the flower
Okay.
without killing yourself.
That's important.
Very important part. It's a step that some people left out. So
Now, all of this was before there was the regulations that exist now.
Oh yeah, I want to say this was maybe pre 215.
Right. It sounds like it.
But it was because I think 215 happened while I was already in the business, and there's almost too much to go into. It's crazy, but yeah, Prop 64 was not in place yet. So this Timisium was a kind of an expensive thing. It's a little bit elaborate looking. Back in the day, it looked really elaborate. Now it looks silly, like a little thing to us. Now, I mean, we ended up with 3 rooms of extraction equipment, and this thing fit on a kitchen table.
Wow.
So, but it looked crazy to us back then. But anyhow, we didn't know any better. Honestly, I think that's what really happened is that we started to extract with trimmed bud instead of trim itself and flower and leaves and stuff. And the product that came out was spectacular. It just was. It was beautiful. It was, bright yellow, and it tasted great. It smelled great, and people didn't have this back then. It was using a torch and a titanium nail, all this weird equipment to smoke it. And I remember saying to my partner, "It's too expensive. We can't.
Sure.
We won't be able to sell it. It's not. It's fun to smoke,
but it's not profitable.
But it doesn't seem like we could charge enough to actually make our money back and a profit.
Right.
Unless we just gave it away to people somewhere." So
you don't want to do that.
Well, that's what we did.
Oh, you did?
We sure did. We opened up a dispensary in Pacific Beach on Cass Street, right across from the post office.
Okay.
And we put a dab bar in there. Dab is what they call the small amount of concentrate that you smoke like that.
Okay.
And so we put a separate room in the place where we could just give it away, and if you wanted to buy it, you found out the horrible price. And back then the horrible price was $45 for a half a gram.
Oh my.
$80 for a whole gram.
Wow.
So you got $10 off if you bought a whole gram, which was, I mean, it's just ridiculously high. But nobody was using anything like that back then. There were a couple places here and there that had this product, and some of it was called earwax.
Oh, okay.
And you'd hear products, but we were a regular dispensary with flour, and then we would tell people, hey, if you want, we would give away. We had poker chips. We would give them a poker chip. Say, take a poker chip into that room. They'll give you a dab if you want to get really high right now. And that was it. Almost everybody came out saying, where do I buy it? How much is it? We couldn't keep it on the shelves at that price.
So it's like a free sample.
And then, but I mean, it was crazy. So we got a little too busy. That's what happened is we blew up and there were lines, and then of course you get a complaint, and then the zoning department comes around and closes you. So that happened a few times. 4. So we just moved from one place to another.
You kept moving.
Yeah, it's very expensive, and it's painful, and you don't get at some point, which is what happened to us on the 4th time. Just like, this isn't working. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Prop 64, but they keep they're not. We're not getting raided. Get a letter from the city saying you're not zoned to be a marijuana dispensary. So we closed down. A lot of people just stayed open and paid the fines.
So back then, what would you say the amount of THC that you were dispensing? How much THC was?
You mean in a dab?
Yeah,
in a single amount.
Right.
Right. I can tell you that.
Okay.
So a gram of concentrate, typically, we'll just call it typically, 800 milligrams of THC. Okay.
800
in a gram of concentrate.
Okay.
Almost any concentrate.
Okay.
Go to March and Ash.
Okay.
Pick one up.
All right.
About 800. I mean, there's a lot of different products, and they come up different, but 800 is about right. So if you were to smoke, I don't know, a tenth of a gram, 1/10.
Okay.
You'd be getting 80 milligrams.
Right.
That's about 2.5 pretty strong joints back then, all in one hit.
Wow.
most people couldn't smoke 2.5 joints all at once. You get the kids that can do anything, but the average person wouldn't do that.
Sure.
So we found out really quickly that a tenth was too much. Mm-hmm. So we started to give out 0.03. Mm. That turned out to be the amount that kept people from falling down, because that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Occasionally people would throw up. We had some real weird issues with this at first until we understood what the hell was going on. It all goes back to education, because we just didn't know. By the third week, we had a questionnaire. Have you ever tried this before? How often do you use cannabis? Do you wake up in the morning and use it immediately? Do you use it only on weekends? And we would tell people, look, it's $5 for a dab, but we'll give it to you in 3. Mm-hmm. And if we don't want to get anybody overly inebriated here. Mm-hmm. The idea is to enjoy yourself, not, how can I, get totaled? For some people, that's what it was about.
But this is still medical, though.
Well, it was considered medical.
Okay.
But really, was it being used medically at our dispensary? No, maybe. You know what I mean? There are people that may have perfectly well been getting their dose.
Sure.
Maybe some of those people didn't even know they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge concept. But no, it was always sort of recreational, and we all sort of hid behind it. I didn't, at that time, when we opened up our first shop, I got scared when someone asked me about cancer. Ooh. I remember it happening really clearly too, and me saying, I just don't know. From what I've heard, try strong indica. I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing. It's a weird feeling,
right, when
someone's coming in for really important advice and you're sure you don't have the right answer for them. Mm-hmm. It's hard, really hard to do.
Sure. So were you making any money back then at the height of it?
Well,
you smile.
If this hadn't happened, I think I might not be in the industry right now. But the first thing we did, that first dispensary, my first dispensary was in Pacific Beach.
Right.
We were called Pacific Green Farms, or PGP. And our goal, I think this is our 3rd month there, for real now, our goal was to pay the rent and the bills by noon on the first day of each month.
Wow.
And we did.
Wow.
We paid all of our bills before noon on the first day of each month, and all the rest of the days of the month.
So 29 days
of pure profit. It was crazy.
That is incredible.
It was insane. We were too busy, and that's why we got closed.
And what was you weren't paying taxes?
We couldn't. So what we did was we contacted a lawyer.
Okay. And
we said, we're going to do this. Okay. And they gave us a bunch of paperwork, and we signed everything. I don't even remember anymore. I've signed so many of those things. But we did whatever you could do.
Yeah.
And there was, like I said, that everyone was always friendly from the city when they were destroying our lives. We didn't get any raids. I'll tell you one thing that happened. This blew my mind.
Okay.
This was the final place, though. We were over on El Cajon Boulevard near 70th. And 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I get a phone call, which is pretty disturbing. And I answered the phone, and it's, Officer Johnson from the El Cajon Police Department.
Sure.
Who is saying to me, Mr. Herzberg, you own a cannabis dispensary on El Cajon Boulevard? Mm-hmm. And I said, yes. And he said, well, someone just broke in. There's glass everywhere. It doesn't look like they got anything. Do you want me to wait here, or you good?
Wow.
And I said, I'm good. And he said, okay. And I was that wasn't a legal dispensary. There were no legal dispensaries.
That was it. He
There
didn't.
were no legal dispensaries in
Right.
San Diego. There was no way to get one. There was no zone for one. So they hadn't gotten that far yet.
Right.
But they just, I think there were 250 dispensaries back then. And they just didn't seem to be interested in the fact that I had a dispensary.
So
They just
now-
was letting me know that
Yeah.
my,
So, correct me if I'm wrong. There was a lot of money made during, maybe the 2009, 2008, 2007,
2009, 2010,
10,
11, 12.
before it became a thing that we're going to tax and we're going to regulate and so forth.
There was money in it if you were good. I knew people. I remember the guys from the farm. The
Okay.
first group that we went in and did that group thing. So we got to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come into our dab bar, right? There just wasn't too many places to do dabs. So we got everybody came.
Mm-hmm.
And so they came in one day and I said, well, how's it going? And they're like, we're done. I said, what do you mean? We're done. We're done. Closed too many times. Can't put up with this
Okay.
anymore. And this was a shop that I owned a shop and went to their shop. It was so good.
Wow.
Right? And so I was like, well, no. What time is it? You just started. You can't give up. No, we've had it.
Wow.
So there were people that were just
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, why that hasn't happened to me yet, I don't know. My wife, every once in a while, she'll look at me and say, you ready to quit yet?
She's looking for that quit in your eye. Huh?
She's kind of waiting. I mean, she was very proud when we were doing all the medical stuff with kids.
Right.
We were getting the kind of emails every day, thanks and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
My wife couldn't. You can't fight against that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and she's a good egg, right? She never gave me any trouble about this.
Sure.
But it's hard. We've, overall, in the last 12 years, I've lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like all the money we had is all gone. It's really gone. It's no joke. It's been a financial nightmare.
It's expensive. It's an expensive venture.
Yeah, at some point, we do events, we're like trying to figure out, okay, we have to put a deposit on the venue. I got to buy $4,000 worth of trophies. We're trying to figure out, like, how do we just cover everything we need?
Yeah.
It's not easy. And really, it's the regulatory system either didn't understand or didn't care how it all went.
Right.
So that there was money for everybody.
But shortly or soon, they discovered that there was a way to either tax it and regulate it and tax it, the industry.
They've done it, but it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's truly horrible, and very few people are making it, and it's definitely not the legacy people. I mean, there's the people like me. So if you come from a business background, and you've got access to millions, multi-millions, it seems like there are some cannabis endeavors which make money.
So Barry, when you say legacy, what are you talking about?
So when I was 15, 1973, I guess I was 14, because it was 72, I decided to try some of my brother's weed. And I've been in love with it ever since. And I spent, I made all the money I made to live in college by selling weed. I certainly got into some trouble doing that.
Sure.
It's, it's been my life, my whole life. As soon as I realized there was a possibility to be in the industry, I gave up a pretty lucrative job like that because, I can't watch this from the side. I can't.
Right.
And little did I know, of course, what would happen over the course of 12 years. But yeah, this is, legacy is people who have been passionate for a long time,
Okay.
who've done it as right as they could. And when they learned, they did it better. And, these are mostly people who, opened up a retail outlet with no retail experience. They didn't become, a retail clerk at a place where they could learn. They opened up their own shop, and there's a lot of issues with doing stuff like that.
So when you say legacy, you're talking about people that were in the cannabis industry before there was licensing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All the shops I went into in San Diego, pre-2009, including, my own, these people are still here. They're not dead. Very few of them, if any, that I know, have managed to get licensed.
Yeah.
People come in with a lot of money, and there's some things I just can't say.
Sure.
Because people out there will hear it and get mad at me.
Understand.
But there's a lot of people who came in with zero knowledge,
Right.
saw an opportunity,
And took advantage of it.
took advantage of
Sure.
it. A lot of them. And some of them became friends of mine. And then you find out, hey, let's go smoke a joint. And they say, oh, well, maybe, and then we get a few excuses why someone on a Friday night, after dinner doesn't want to smoke, and you assume, I'll be damned, this person doesn't smoke, right? And every time that's happened to me, it's been sort of stunning. And then I make phone calls. Can you believe it? I start texting my friends, this person or that person. And a lot of them are people
Right.
and I meet more every day.
Okay.
And I don't know if the industry has anybody or that many people. It was great to see the His and Herbs people,
Oh.
right?
Okay.
Legacy people. Look like I didn't get very involved in the business structure, and I don't know who owns what. What I saw was somebody that looks like they've been doing it a while,
Right.
doing it.
Well, certainly it's harder now if you're doing it with a license. If you're getting in the business and you need a license, or you're seeking a license from the city or the county to be in business, as opposed to the legacy market where perhaps people don't have the license, so they're not paying the taxes. I think I've heard percentages like 80% of the market is legacy, is unlicensed, and 20% is licensed, and that's where the taxes are coming from.
Right. I would say that right now, percentages scare me because most of them are made up.
Granted.
And people have different perspectives
Sure.
that make them see one side maybe more clearly than the other. So I'm not going to get into that.
Okay.
But I will tell you that I know of quite a few licensed cultivators
Okay.
that are forced to sell their product out the back door into the black market in order to stay alive in the industry at all.
Wow, that's profound.
And I wanted to say that I would say that's more than 80% of the licensed cultivators.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Like the amount of people, because what do you do?
Yeah.
Like if you built this whole thing up, you've got all these places, these indoors.
Right.
Have you ever been to a large indoor grow?
Yes,
That's an enormous amount of square footage to be paying for.
it is.
And to not be able to make enough money to pay people to trim it and grow it and all the water and nutrients, I don't know what I would do. And if there's an opportunity to just go back to what you've been doing all your life anyway. The problem is that, I don't know if that's a problem, but what do you do though if you own one of those places and you don't have that background and you don't want to do that kind of thing? What do you do? And California is forcing people out of the business who managed to get in and keeping people out who should get in. You got to be kidding me. I can't.
Because of regulations.
Right. Well, and I mean,
taxes.
there's a lot of reasons though, because
Yeah.
for instance, when we were closest to getting a license, we were making tinctures for targeted diseases.
The oils.
Yes.
Okay.
So I needed back then. I needed about $3.5 million. That was about the smallest I could get. $3.5 million as an investment.
Dollars.
To start to
Okay.
to start to do this on some sort of a legal basis.
Right.
And we had so many investors that were really interested because we were working with a group with sick kids.
Sure.
And then as soon as they found out that we didn't have a recreational product and that we were only selling medicine,
Yeah.
they were like, you're just going to get sued.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to even, we're not interested. Why don't you make this into a recreational product? You guys know what you're doing. We're like, it's mind-blowing to hear someone say that, but then you hear it 3 or 4 times and you just say, we're done. We can't, and there's nothing you could do. You can't sell the product anymore, dealing with kids' moms meeting me at hospitals. This is what was happening.
Wow.
So
an important point that you just brought up is how expensive it is. I mean, $3 million is not.
That's nothing now.
Yeah, nothing now. But even then, I don't think the average person would have $3 million on their dresser. Like you have change.
No, you have to seek investment.
Yeah.
And so you look for angel investors, but the thing is, you find that most investors want to make money. It's a funny thing about that.
Isn't that odd?
Just getting paid back is difficult.
Yeah.
However, we had a plan to do that. They just didn't want to get sued.
Right.
And they're right. They're right.
Sure.
Somebody eventually would have said, my kid died, it was the cannabis fault.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But for whatever reason.
So we have a really good feel for your passion. I would say, without question, you've got a passion for the industry, all phases of it, from a long time. I mean, not just yesterday. You didn't wake up this morning and say, hey, I'm interested in the cannabis industry. You've got a long history of it.
Yeah.
It seems to me that must have brought you to the Farmer's Cup. Talk to me about the Farmer's Cup and how that happened.
Yeah. I remember visiting San Bernardino. That's where a lot of the cannabis events used to take place because it was legal. And I remember going into a High Times Cannabis Cup.
Right.
And I don't know when, 2011 or something. And thinking, boy, this is the picks and shovels. This is it, events. Like, you don't have to mess with this plant, but look at all these people. And we didn't really do anything about it. And my partner, Joshua Caruso, he started back in the day too. In fact, I met him at our dab bar. So he and I go back right to the beginning. So a couple of years after we had met, he started doing cannabis events here in San Diego under the San Diego Cannabis Farmers Market. And his events were huge and crazy. I mean, he had circus tents up at the Sheraton at Fiesta Island, and everyone. It was awesome there. You'd walk in, there were people selling extraction equipment. There were cultivators selling their product. Okay. There were extractors selling their product. There was bands playing. And he did a little Farmer's Cup where they had you bought a ticket and you walked through and tried all the little brands that were in the area and then voted on one. And people loved that, right? So fast forward a little bit, I'm in the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce and here in San Diego, and I invite this guy Josh, who's doing these farmers markets kind of things. Okay. I invite him to be part of our group, and so he becomes part of the group, and we started to chat a little bit more. And he was telling me how Prop 64 has killed the events. Can't do them anymore. Can't do them. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm trying desperately. Got a state cannabis events license. Can't find a municipality that'll allow us to come do an event. San Diego won't let us. Been everywhere. And I said, man, let's get together and do something. Let's get our foot in the door with a hemp event. And so in 2019, we went to the city and sat down with everybody, including like the police chief and everybody.
Sure.
It was a little creepy for me. It really was, to be talking about, cannabis anyway. And we told them what we want to do. We said, we basically want to get our foot in the door here, get a licensed event going that surrounds cannabis, and it'll be hemp. We won't have cannabis there. We won't have any smokable, psychoactive product.
And they knew the difference, or you explained the difference.
Oh yeah, no, these were intelligent people. Yeah,
Okay.
They definitely knew the difference between hemp.
All right.
And we told them that it was all hunky dory back then legally.
Okay.
And so there was tags and systems where you could go seed to sale. You could scan a barcode on a plant and it told you everything.
And
so,
you knew it was hemp. Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
So they granted us permission to do this thing, and we rented out Liberty Station. We rented out the big giant field with the cannons in front of it at Liberty Station. I forget what it's called now. And we threw a big event. We had hundreds of vendors and all kinds of speakers and just dancing. It was just really fun.
Wow.
We had a great time. The city came out early and said, because we had a farm bring out 50 flowering hemp plants.
Okay.
It looked like a cannabis farm. You can't tell the difference at all. There's zero.
Right.
So it looked crazy out there in Liberty Station with people strolling their kids by and balloons. And the city was like, so talk to us about this. So we showed them everything, and they were like, go for it. So it was a 2-day event. We had a great weekend. And then COVID hit 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And we thought, can't do live events. What are we going to do now? We've been in trouble before, but this is
real trouble.
You got to be kidding me now. Because by this time now, we've closed, my company has closed the extraction facility.
Right.
Pennies on the dollar for this extraction equipment. And I am, active in the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And I got no job. There's nothing for me to do anymore. It's like, I got to figure out what to do. So, the idea was, let's do these events. Well, now the events seem to be gone. I thought, man, this is going to be a tough year. And so we realized that if we engaged the legal licensed brands in California.
Okay.
We had a lot of background, so we were able to say who we were, Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and whatever things we had been doing.
Right.
We found out that the brands would love to have a legal competition more than walking into an area smoking 10 different things and telling them which ones you think was best, because after the third one you can't.
So now that we're
Can't remember how to tie your shoes.
right. Now that you're in the legal area, you're not just talking about hemp.
Oh no! Now what we decided to do was contact the actual cannabis brands, the already legal brands, and ask them if they would like to be involved in a real competition where the judges had a couple of weeks to really take notes, really try their product, and then if we had we made sure that we had, a lot of hoopla around it.
Right.
And so everyone was just very nice. There's not a lot of options for brands to advertise. You don't hear it on the radio. Billboards have got their issues.
Unless you go into a shop.
And you go into a shop, I'll give you the name of a brand. Tell me how long it takes you to even find it.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
And so, plus the bud tenders rule the business. That's another story for you.
Oh, boy.
Because as soon as you walk in, and this happened to me all the time, and I know it still happens, someone walks in and says, I want this product, what's the best one? And the bud tender says, this one. And they say, I'll take that. And then they leave, because why would you? You can't tell. The packaging is horrible.
Yeah.
There's way too much of it. You can't see it. You can't smell it.
Yeah.
You can't taste it. You got nothing but the price. And so,
And what the bud tender has said.
right, the bud tenders, and they rule.
Right.
They really do. They rule. So, what we wanted to do was have someone who knew something about cannabis
Right.
spend 2 weeks with a group of products
Right.
to determine all the good points, all the bad points, comments, and final votes on best flavor, best aroma, best taste, best effect, most likely to purchase again, best packaging,
Oh, wow.
all kinds of stuff, and then overall first, second, and third.
Right.
So quite a lot of categories that you could possibly win or not.
And this is going to help the consumer.
It's designed to
Guide.
help everyone, really.
Right.
Because what's happening is that the consumer can't try all these products. You couldn't find all the products in one dispensary anyway. And then for them to actually, the average person is just kind of, like you're smoking a cigarette. It's time, you grab one and smoke it.
Right.
And there's not a lot necessarily from a lot of people of real scrutiny. And so we're asking people who are, stronger than average users
Sure.
to put a lot of scrutiny on these brands that participate. And so we've had to break, there's a lot of products in a dispensary.
Right.
Most people couldn't tell you what they are, but there are a lot. And so in order to do this fairly, we had to make sure that we had a category for each product available in a dispensary.
Okay.
So early in the year is typically Valentine's Day, so we do edibles
Okay.
around Valentine's Day. And then 420 comes, and we do, 420 is the big holiday.
Right. April. Okay.
So in April, we do all products. That's our big event.
Right.
All products in the dispensary in separate categories. It's a nightmare.
Sure.
Then on 7/10, July 10th, so I'm not sure if you're familiar.
No, I don't know that date.
Okay, so if you write down 7/10 and then you turn it upside down, it says oil. Okay?
Okay.
7/10 upside down says oil.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
All right.
So 7/10 became the concentrate holiday.
Ah.
So 7/10 is the big, it's go on Instagram. There's
Okay.
not a brand that isn't doing a
Okay.
7/10 thing. It's become
Yeah.
as big as 420 for the hardcore people. If you're using concentrates, you're at the next level.
Okay.
So in 7/10 we do a concentrate
Okay.
contest, just concentrates.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, really it's very difficult for us because it's the end of December, beginning of January, which is hard because of all the holidays.
Right.
But that's when the harvest festival takes place, and we have to take outdoor growers into consideration who've got a lot of extra work and their cultivation time is different. So the cultivators want to give us their product samples in the best possible shape.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, well, the best possible time for us to give it would be like the second week in January. That's when everything's perfect, it's dried, it's trimmed, it's exactly right. And so this year, it looks like we're going to actually push to, we used to do it at the end of December. I think we're going to push to first or second week in January.
Okay.
And so we do 4 of these events a year. One concentrated on concentrates,
Right.
one on flour, one on edibles,
Got it.
and then one on all of them. And so we include any tinctures in edibles. There's a few little things
Right.
that we have to do, but we keep everything separate. So just very quickly, if you're doing the flower cup, if you were decided to become a judge, you would come to the participating dispensary, and we've done it at a number of them around San Diego.
Right.
You've already bought a ticket to this event. Now you go to the participating dispensary. You show them your name's on a list.
Right.
You say, I'm one of the judges. They give you a box or a bag filled with all of the products that are in it.
Right.
You pay a nominal amount to make it legal, so they charge you $1 plus tax.
Sure.
because everything has to be done.
Everything has to be taxed.
Oh, everything has to be strictly legal. We have to be very, very careful.
Right.
And so the judges do that all in one weekend. They go and pick up their products. Sometimes we use 3 different dispensaries because there's so many products.
Right.
And there's legal maximums.
Really?
So if you went to a dispensary, the most flower that you can purchase is 28.5 grams.
I didn't know that.
You just can't. Yeah, you can't buy any more. If you want to buy concentrates, you're allowed to buy 8 grams. So there's a lot of things like that. So we have everything split up into legal limits, so that if you're one judge, you may have to come to a dispensary 6 times, or you can come with 4 people, and it doesn't matter to us as long as the ticket buyer makes all the rules.
Right.
So everything's done, but I mean we're super we're over the limit legal. We try and do everything like a little bit more than even.
Yeah.
So, we make it 28 grams instead of 28.5. We do stuff like that so that there's no issues.
Right.
So then the judge goes home, and there's a digital ballot that's emailed to them that has all these questions in all the places. And they spend, usually it's 2.5 weeks, scrutinizing the products, filling in the digital ballot. They send them out. We add up all the results and make trophies, and then we have an event, an awards event.
And that's what's going to happen October?
No, that's a completely
what?
different thing.
What?
We were talking about the Farmer's Cup.
Yeah. So the October 29th is not the Farmer's Cup?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, 0 to do with that.
All right.
Yeah, this is a community sort of a thing for us. And we've always been San Diego-centric, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what to do. You get turned down a lot, too. It's funny. We tried to collect toys for Toys R Tots. Marines told us where we can put it.
Yeah, they didn't want to be associated.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people, so it's hard sometimes to do things for the community. But what we do know is that there's employers out there in the cannabis industry that need people. And there's a lot of people that want to be in the cannabis industry.
Okay, right.
And that's on absolutely every level, right up to C-level.
Right.
So, I mean, for instance, this year, I don't want to misspeak, but I think Bang Chocolates is looking for some C-level employee that's going to have to move back to Massachusetts and a 6-figure job. So there's some real, there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's also bud tender positions and trimmer positions. And
sure.
So we've got the 4 Points Sheraton on Arrow Drive in San Diego. They've been very nice to work with us. We've got 3 large conference rooms for panels that we're doing, educational panels.
Okay.
An enormous area where you'll be able to meet prospective employers, areas where you can go and fill out, applications, places where you can actually do a private interview if it needs to be done.
Okay.
Plus, there'll be fun. There'll be music. There'll be some food.
Right.
But mostly it's to get. We want to get this industry moving.
Right.
And people just don't know what to do, and they're intimidated.
I get it.
They
You
don't
know
wanna
what?
Just walk into the front and Mark Nash and say, "I'm looking for a job."
I'm looking for a job. I want to work.
Yeah.
So you have explained it beautifully, so that there are 4 times a year where different parts of the product are judged and valued, so that the consumer can have an idea of what's top and what's good for this and what's good for that. Okay. On the 29th of October, which is October is going to be here in a few days.
Yeah. We're a month away.
Right. This is more of a career education business, as it indicates, business expo.
Correct.
For people that are interested in getting into the business, but have always wondered, how do I get to be a bud tender? How do I get to be a 6-figure executive that you just talked about?
Right.
How can I get there? How can I apply?
Yes. It's a tough thing.
Yeah.
It's people would come to me the first year I was in the industry. I had a dispensary. They'd come and say, "Hey, you're the old guy. You must own the place." But that's the truth too. They would say, "How do I get into the industry?"
Right.
And I'd say, find a farm and start to trim. That's
Good
it.
point.
Everybody. I said, that's all I said to anybody.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
It's not. I say, what do you bring to the table outside of cannabis, and why wouldn't that be something that relates to cannabis somehow?
Excellent.
That's
yes.
usually,
Yeah.
and honestly, I'm not sure if maybe that might not have been the real good idea for me, but I sort of am doing that now with events. So
Yeah.
I'm not growing anything. I'm not making any extraction. I'm not selling any product. So I am sort of, in the picks and shovels area of cannabis.
Sure.
And so, but I think that's the thing, is that when I looked around the room in the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, there was a financial advisor, and there was an insurance broker, and there was an attorney, and this was a real estate guy. And I realized, I'm the only legacy cannabis person in the room.
Right.
And I feel that way a little bit sometimes at our meetings. And that's okay. It's okay, because there's a lot to learn in the world, and cannabis isn't necessarily number one on the list. But if you wanted to really get into the industry, I strongly recommend you take your current, positive
skills.
and figure out how to help somebody. And that just may be, if you're an artist, you do logos, or
Right.
it touches everything.
I'm willing to bet on your advertisement that you brought here today that Barry's art background had something to do with this.
No, isn't that interesting? So I'm going to give a shout out to Brian Harding, who just does beautiful work, and like he's a master of Photoshop. And so we asked him I feel sorry for him sometimes, because let me just give you an idea. We've had, most of our Farmers Cups have 60 to 100 individual items in the kit.
Wow.
And so we asked him to do a full-blown flyer like this for every single one.
Oh my gosh.
And then anything else we come up with too, and he's just on it.
Oh my gosh.
So he's great. If you're looking for anybody, Brian Harding on Facebook, I think it's BHI, Brian Harding Illustrations. He's great. So no, it doesn't. Although I did this stuff for the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And I kind of started to do it in there, and then Brian said,
Okay.
why don't we keep this one of us? And I thought, oh, good. It's something I can give up. That's fine. So I don't do it anymore, but thank you. Yes, I used to do that kind of stuff.
So the 29th of October is going to be the opportunity for folks to come in who have maybe wanted to know about cannabis, wanted to get involved in cannabis. They can come and find out. Is that correct?
Maybe they're already in cannabis.
Or
maybe they're
in
interested
cannabis.
in the politics of cannabis. Because, the November elections are like, what is it, 4 days later?
Around the corner.
No,
Yeah.
We picked the 29th.
For a reason.
For a reason, yes. We wanted the weekend before the election.
Right.
So we're gonna be doing a lot of political discussion there. So if you're interested in San Diego politics, if you're interested in social equity, if you're interested in anything having to do with cannabis, we are trying hard to include as much as we can. I think we've got 6 hours. Like I said, we've got 3 conference rooms and then a giant meeting room.
Wow.
We're going to try and jam it. It's not going to be, there's not going to be any time to waste.
So Barry, give the listening audience again where it's going to be.
It's going to be at the Sheraton 4 Points on Arrow Drive. So I want to say it's right at the 163 and where Arrow Drive meets, but you can't miss it. The Sheraton 4 Points.
Yeah, that's a good. Now, what if folks would like to get in touch with you?
Where?
Yeah, how would they get in touch with you? Because I'm sure they've got questions they want to ask you.
Sure. They can reach anybody in our team at info@farmerscupofficial.com. So it's farmers with an S, cupofficial.com. And the whole team gets it. Somebody will answer you pretty quickly. If you're interested in being part of the event, there's still time. So and we have so much room in there. We'll find a place for you. If you're a company that is looking for good employees, I think the last time we did this, each company averaged 200 or 300 resumes that they took home. So we had thousands of people show up. It was a crush.
Wow.
So yeah, we do. It's going to be full.
It's going to be big.
It's
going to be big. And I can say this without any question. Cannabis Enlightened, Dr. Leroy will be there, and I will be looking for people to put on the podcast and to bring into the studio. So I value this. I think it's going to be a fantastic event, and I endorse it 110% if it's possible to do 110%.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate it.
It has been a joy and a pleasure and definitely educational for me to have you in the studio and have you on the podcast. And I really appreciate your time and the work that you've done all these years. I mean, you're a pioneer in the cannabis industry.
They call us OGs, I think.
OGs, you're an OG.
First time somebody called me that, I just started to laugh. And he got mad. He said, "No, I'm serious." And I said, "I'm sorry. It just sounds so funny."
I would say that if for no other reason, you got to come out and meet Barry. Because he's an interesting individual and full of a lot of history about cannabis in general and especially cannabis here in San Diego. So thank you very much for spending the time with me, Barry. I appreciate it, and look forward to having you back again.
Thanks, Dr. Leroy.
Olas Media.